October 1941. A field hospital 30 kilometers behind the Bryansk front. The air thick with the smell of antiseptic and gangrene. In a metal-framed bed near the window, a 21-year-old Red Army tank driver named Mikhail Kalashnikov stares at his bandaged shoulder. Shrapnel from a German shell has torn through muscle and bone. He can't lift his arm. He can't return to his T-34. But he can watch. And what he watches in that overcrowded ward filled with wounded men will change the course of military history. Soldiers cursing at their rifles. Bolts jamming. Mechanisms freezing in the mud. Complex weapons failing simple men. Kalashnikov reaches for a pencil. He begins to sketch. He doesn't know it yet, but he's about to design the most prolific killing machine ever created. 100 million copies. Every war since 1947. A weapon so simple a child can use it. And they have. To understand how a wounded tank mechanic became the father of the AK-47, you need to understand what Soviet infantry faced in 1941. The Red Army issued two main rifles, the Mosin-Nagant, a bolt-action design from 1891, and the SVT-40, a semi-automatic that jammed in cold weather, clogged with dirt, and required an engineering degree to field strip. German soldiers carried the MP-40 submachine gun, fast, reliable, devastating at close range. Soviet troops died fumbling with stuck bolts and frozen firing pins. Kalashnikov watched this from his hospital bed. He'd grown up in Siberia, the 17th child of a peasant family deported to Kazakhstan during collectivization. He had an 8th grade education. He'd worked as a railway clerk, joined the Red Army in 1938, became a tank driver. No formal engineering training, no university credentials, just a mind that understood how things worked and how they broke. While his shoulder healed through the winter of 1941 to 42, Kalashnikov filled notebook after notebook, not with theory, with drawings. A rifle that could fire in mud, in snow, in sand, that a conscript with frozen fingers could disassemble in 30 seconds. That would never jam, never fail, never betray the man holding it. The Soviet military establishment didn't know his name. They wouldn't have cared. But desperation has a way of opening doors that credentials keep locked. By 1944, the Red Army needed a new rifle. Stalin himself demanded it. They opened a competition. Tank mechanics were allowed to enter. Kalashnikov returned to duty in 1942, but his sketches followed him. In stolen hours between battles, in workshops behind the lines, he refined his design. The key insight came from watching how grain harvesters worked in Kazakhstan. Simple mechanisms, repeating motions, built to function when clogged with chaff and dust. What if you applied that philosophy to a rifle? Long stroke gas piston, generous tolerances between moving parts, heavy stamped steel receiver that could absorb impact and keep functioning, rotating bolt that locked with brutal simplicity, no precision machining required. No delicate springs to snap in the cold, just steel, force, and physics. The war ended in May 1945. Kalashnikov was 25 years old, still officially a sergeant, still a nobody in the Soviet military hierarchy. But the rifle competition proceeded. Engineers from Tula and Izhevsk, men with decades of experience, men whose names appeared in technical journals, submitted designs. So did Kalashnikov. His prototype looked crude next to theirs. Rough welds, stamped parts instead of milled components. It looked like something a tank mechanic would build in a field workshop, because it was. The test began in 1946. Submersion in water, burial in sand, exposure to temperatures from -40 to +40 Celsius. Drop tests, endurance tests, firing thousands of rounds without cleaning. One by one, the sophisticated designs failed. Bolts cracked, gas tubes clogged, firing pins broke. Kalashnikov's rifle kept firing. They packed it with mud. It fired. They froze it in a block of ice, thawed it, and pulled the trigger. It fired. They gave it to soldiers with no instructions, told them to figure it out. They did in under a minute, and this is where the story takes a turn no one expected. But before we get to that, if you're finding this untold history as fascinating as I am, drop a comment below. What do you think made the AK-47 so dominant? And hit that like button. It tells YouTube to recommend this to more history lovers like you. The Soviet Army officially adopted the aftermath Kalashnikov Model 1947, the AK-47. Kalashnikov was promoted to major, given a workshop at the Izhevsk mechanical plant, awarded the Stalin Prize. He'd done what the establishment engineers couldn't. He'd built a weapon that matched Soviet manufacturing capabilities and Soviet tactical doctrine. Mass production using unskilled labor, function over form, reliability over precision. A rifle that worked when everything else failed. Production began in 1948. The Izhevsk plant stamped out receivers like cookie cutters. No CNC machines required. No tight tolerances. Workers who'd never touched a rifle before could assemble one in an hour. By 1950, the Red Army had replaced its entire infantry rifle inventory. By 1955, they were exporting the design to Warsaw Pact nations. By 1960, China was producing its own version, the Type 56. Egypt, Poland, Romania, Yugoslavia, every Soviet ally built their own AK variants. The blueprints weren't secret. Moscow gave them away. The goal wasn't profit. It was proliferation. Now, here's something most documentaries won't tell you. Kalashnikov never received royalties. The Soviet state owned his design. He lived on a military pension, modest by any standard, while his rifle armed 70 nations. He didn't complain. In interviews, he spoke with genuine pride about serving his country, about giving Soviet soldiers a weapon they could trust. He married an engineer named Yekaterina, had 4 children, lived in a small apartment in Izhevsk. He continued refining his design, the AKM in 1959, lighter and cheaper to produce. The AK-74 in 1974, chambered for a smaller, faster cartridge. Each iteration more efficient, more reliable, more ubiquitous. But efficiency is a morally neutral word, and the AK-47 didn't stay in the hands of Soviet soldiers. Vietnam, 1965. Viet Cong guerrillas armed with AKs ambush American patrols. The M16, America's answer, jams in the jungle humidity. The AK fires wet. Afghanistan, 1979. Mujahideen fighters use AK supplied by the CIA to kill Soviet soldiers. The rifle designed to defend communism now kills communists. Africa, 1980s. Child soldiers, some as young as 8, carry AKs because they're light enough for a child and simple enough for an illiterate recruit. No training required. Point, pull trigger, repeat. By the 1990s, the AK-47 had transcended its origin. It appeared on national flags. Mozambique put on their emblem, a rifle cross with a hoe, symbolizing defense and labor. Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, Somali warlords, Mexican cartels. The AK became the universal symbol of asymmetric warfare. Cheap, plentiful, indestructible. You could buy one in a Mogadishu market for the price of a chicken. 100 million AK pattern rifles produced worldwide, more than any other firearm in history, more than all American military rifles combined. Kalashnikov's creation had become evolution's answer to the question, what weapon survives every environment, every conflict, every attempt to regulate or restrict it? Kalashnikov lived to see all of it. The wars in Chechnya, the rise of ISIS, the Syrian civil war, the images of children holding his rifle like toys. In 2006, he was asked by a German journalist if he felt guilt. He paused. I sleep soundly, he said. I created a weapon to defend my country. What others do with it is not my responsibility. But the question followed him into old age like a shadow that lengthens at dusk. It's impossible to hear these stories without feeling something. Anger, awe, sadness, all of it. Let me know in the comments how you're processing this. And if you believe these forgotten engineers deserve to be remembered, that like button is how we make sure their stories don't disappear. In 2007, at age 87, Kalashnikov wrote a letter to the head of the Russian Orthodox Church. It wasn't published until after his death. I keep asking myself the same unsolvable question, he wrote. If my assault rifle took people's lives, does that mean that I, Mikhail Kalashnikov, am responsible for their deaths? He described nightmares. Faces he'd never seen but knew existed. People killed by his design. The longer I live, the more this question insists upon itself. He asked the patriarch, does the creator of a weapon bear responsibility for how it's used? The church's answer was diplomatic. The responsibility lies with those who use evil, not those who create tools. But Kalashnikov's own words told a different story. In a 2009 interview, he said what he really believed. I will prefer to invent a lawnmower. Not a joke, not false modesty. A man at 90 expressing genuine regret that his genius had been channeled toward destruction rather than creation. He received every honor the Russian state could bestow. Hero of the Russian Federation, Order of Lenin, Order of St. Andrew. Putin visited him on his birthdays. Museums displayed his rifles like Faberge eggs. But the praise rang hollow against the arithmetic. 100 million rifles. An estimated 250,000 deaths per year attributable to AK pattern weapons. Over 60 years, 15 million lives. No precise count exists. How do you audit a weapon that exists on every continent, in every conflict, fired by governments and guerrillas alike? Kalashnikov died December 23, 2013, age 94. Natural causes. His funeral in Izhevsk drew thousands, veterans, factory workers, military officials. He was buried with full honors. Russian television called him a patriot, a genius, a hero who protected the motherland. They showed footage of his rifle in red square parades, gleaming under spotlights, carried by goose-stepping soldiers. They didn't show the other footage. Teenagers in Sudan spraying bullets from his design, or Syrian rebels executing prisoners, or Mexican cartel members posing with gold-plated AKs like trophies. The contradiction was never resolved. Kalashnikov himself couldn't resolve it. In his final years, he gave interviews where he defended his legacy and others where he questioned it, sometimes in the same conversation. I created a weapon to defend the border of my country, he'd say. Then, minutes later, but if I'd known how it spread, how it would be used, the sentence would trail off. What would he have done differently? He never said. Maybe he didn't know. Here's what we know for certain. Kalashnikov intended to save Soviet lives. He succeeded. He also created the most efficient tool for irregular warfare ever devised. Both truths coexist. The rifle that defended Stalingrad also armed the Khmer Rouge. The weapon that Soviet mothers thanked for bringing their sons home also killed those sons in Afghanistan. Engineering has no morality, only consequences. This is just one inventor's story. There are dozens more engineers who built the Enigma machine, the Norden bomb sight, the Liberty engine, names history forgot, machines that shaped the world. I've got their stories ready for you. The next video covers an engineer who designed the jet engine the Nazis couldn't stop. And trust me, that one will change how you see aerial warfare. Click that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. The wounded tank driver who wanted to help his comrades. The rifle that never jams, never stops, never dies. The legacy that outlived the man and swallowed his name. Mikhail Kalashnikov gave the world a tool. The world turned it into a plague. And somewhere between intention and outcome, the line between hero and haunting blurred, until not even he could see it.